CBS YNR spoilers Wednesday full episodes May 14, 2025 In the quiet, still moments of the young and the restless, we often find the most intimate and painful struggles taking place in the shadows, where the characters are forced to confront their darkest fears and unresolved emotions. One such moment occurs in the park, where Tessa finds Mariah curled up on the ground, a picture of raw vulnerability. This isn't just a woman exhausted from the demands of life. This is a person caught in the grip of trauma, struggling to push through the weight of her past, unable to escape the ghosts that continue to haunt her. The emotional toll of Mariah's unseen struggles. Tessa approaches Mariah with all the love and concern she can muster, her voice soft but insistent as she pleads for Mariah to open up to her. It's clear that Tessa knows something is deeply wrong. This isn't just about being tired or overworked. Mariah, though, stubbornly clings to the notion that everything is fine, that it's merely the exhaustion from balancing work and life, from the relentless pressure of daily responsibilities. She even uses her role as a mother, a partner, as a shield against the truth. She hasn't even found the energy to read Arya a bedtime story, a seemingly small act, but one that marks the distance growing between her and the life she's worked so hard to build. But Tessa knows this isn't just about fatigue. She's seen the signs before, the subtle shifts in Mariah's demeanor, the way she pulls away from everyone, the hollow look in her eyes. There's something deeper at play, something that Mariah hasn't been able to face yet. This isn't just about being tired. It's about Ian. The return of Ian, a trigger for old wounds. The mere mention of Ian's name changes the entire atmosphere. Mariah, who has been holding herself together with a fragile thread, finally lets it snap. She admits that seeing Ian again, after all these years, has opened old wounds she thought had long healed. It's a raw confession, one that cuts through the protective walls she's built around herself. She has never fully recovered from the trauma Ian inflicted on her and those she loved. The crimes he committed, the murder of Heather, the manipulation and poisoning of Sharon, left scars on Mariah that run deeper than she's ever allowed herself to acknowledge. Tessa, with the sensitivity that she always shows to Mariah, gently reminds her that she is not to blame for Ian's actions. She is the victim, not the accomplice. But the guilt that weighs on Mariah is suffocating. It's not just the crimes themselves that torment her, it's the lingering feeling that she could have stopped them, or perhaps that she could have done something to prevent the destruction Ian left in his wake. The guilt eats at her from the inside, festering in ways that even Tessa's reassurance can't fully quell. Mariah's emotional armor begins to crumble as she confesses the truth of her pain. The trauma she has carried for so long is spilling out, and it's clear that, no matter how much she tells herself that she's fine, the truth is that she's far from okay. The memories of Ian's manipulation are still fresh in her mind, his dark influence still hanging over her, and the pain of everything he did continues to ripple through her life. Tessa's desperate plea. Tessa, heartbroken and desperate to help, gently apologizes for suggesting that Ian might deserve forgiveness. She never meant to make Mariah feel like she was minimizing her pain or the depth of the trauma she has endured. Tessa knows how much this has hurt Mariah, and she regrets trying to offer a quick fix to something so complex and painful. All Tessa wants is to help her partner, to pull her out of this abyss and back into the life they've built together. In a final plea, Tessa suggests therapy, counseling, anything that could help Mariah begin to heal. But the weight of Mariah's guilt is too much for her to bear. In a heartbreaking moment, she whispers, "I'm sorry," her voice barely audible as tears continue to fall. Before Tessa can offer any more comfort, Mariah runs away, leaving Tessa standing in the park, utterly shattered. Tessa's despair. Tessa falls onto a bench, crushed under the weight of the situation. It's not just the heartbreak of seeing Mariah in so much pain, it's the overwhelming feeling of helplessness. She has always been the one who could make things better, who could protect the people she loved from harm, but this is a battle that Tessa can't fight for Mariah. Mariah has to face her own demons, but she's not ready yet. The woman Tessa loves is trapped in her own mind, drowning in guilt and fear, and Tessa can't reach her. She doesn't know how to pull her out. The minutes tick by, and Tessa sits there in silence, her tears blending with the cool evening air. She has done everything she can to be there for Mariah, but right now, it doesn't feel like it's enough. Her heart aches for the woman she loves, and she wishes she could take away the pain that has haunted her for so long. The unexpected comfort of Daniel in the midst of her sorrow, Tessa's solitude is broken by the appearance of Daniel. He doesn't say anything at first, he simply sits beside her, offering a quiet, steady presence. Without a word, he offers her the comfort of his shoulder, a small gesture that speaks volumes. Tessa, overwhelmed by the weight of her emotions, breaks down once more, leaning into him as the tears flow freely. Daniel's support is silent but powerful. In this moment, he doesn't try to fix anything. He simply lets Tessa cry, letting her process the flood of emotions that she has been holding inside. For a few moments, Tessa allows herself to be vulnerable. She doesn't have to be strong for anyone, not in this moment. She's not just the rock for Mariah anymore, she's the one who needs support, and Daniel is offering it, without asking for anything in return. The rawness of the moment, Tessa's grief, her worry for Mariah, and her sense of helplessness, finally finds some relief, even if only temporarily. The strain of unhealed trauma as Tessa sits beside Daniel, her mind keeps drifting back to Mariah. What will it take for her to face the pain she's buried for so long? Mariah's journey is far from over. Her trauma is a part of her, and the path to healing will be long and difficult. Tessa understands this, but it doesn't make it any easier to watch her partner suffer. Mariah's struggle is not just about Ian or the past, it's about finding a way to move forward when the weight of guilt is too much to bear. Tessa can't force Mariah to heal, but she will be there, standing by her side whenever she's ready to take that first step. The situation is far from resolved, but in this moment, Tessa realizes that healing doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey, one that they will take together. Even when the road is dark, and even when Mariah runs away from the pain she doesn't know how to face, Tessa will be there, waiting for her. After all, love isn't about fixing someone. It's about standing by them, no matter how difficult the journey may be. In the end, Tessa knows that she can't control Mariah's healing, but she can offer her unwavering love and support. And sometimes, that's enough. As the intricate world of the young and the restless continues to evolve, Daniel, Phyllis, Billy, and Sally each face their own emotional battles and moral dilemmas, which will shape the course of their lives in unpredictable ways. This chapter in their journeys not only highlights their personal struggles but also weaves in the complex relationships between family, ambition, and the consequences of the decisions they make. Phyllis's decision, a break from Abbott Communications. The day began with Phyllis having a serious conversation with her son, Daniel, at the familiar setting of crimson lights. As they sat with their coffee, Phyllis revealed something that had been weighing heavily on her mind. She was ready to leave Abbott Communications. Her frustration with the company, particularly her disdain for Billy and Sally, had reached its breaking point. Phyllis was not one to keep her thoughts to herself, and she didn't hesitate to criticize her colleagues' talents. She openly declared that she believed Abbott Communications was on the verge of failure, a sinking ship with no chance of recovery. Her disillusionment was palpable, and it was clear that Phyllis felt betrayed by what she saw as a lack of vision and leadership at the company. She had invested so much of herself into Abbott Communications, but now, it seemed like the company's best days were behind it. Her frustration wasn't just about the company's direction, it was also personal. She couldn't shake the feeling that Billy, once a strong and ambitious partner, had become complacent, and Sally, who she had hoped would bring fresh ideas, was no longer the solution Phyllis had envisioned. Turning to Daniel, Phyllis offered a new possibility. She suggested they leave Abbott Communications behind and strike out on their own, to start something fresh and invigorating. It was an offer that promised to be full of potential, yet Daniel wasn't in the right frame of mind to entertain such an idea. Daniel's inner struggle, healing before moving forward. Daniel, however, wasn't ready for a new venture. Despite his mother's enthusiasm, he admitted that he wasn't in the right place to think about the future. His mind and heart were still consumed by the pain of the past, and he couldn't move forward until he had dealt with it. The loss and the emotional toll of everything he had been through weighed heavily on him. It was clear that Daniel was struggling to reconcile his personal trauma with the demands of life around him. Phyllis, ever persistent and determined, refused to let him wallow in his pain for too long. She wasn't ready to give up on him and his potential just yet. She pushed him to look past his grief and consider a new opportunity, one that could help him rediscover his purpose. As a mother who had always been driven by ambition, Phyllis couldn't fathom her son being held back by his pain. Finally, in a moment of compromise, Daniel gave his mother a sliver of hope. He told her that if she found something truly inspiring, something that could ignite a passion in him again, he might consider it. His words were measured, but they left a glimmer of possibility. Phyllis, never one to back down from a challenge, seized on the opportunity. "I'll find a fire," she declared with determination, her eyes lighting up with the promise of a new beginning. Phyllis was always someone who could turn adversity into opportunity, and she wasn't about to stop now. Billy and Sally, the dangers of Victor's offer. Meanwhile, at society, the tension between Billy and Sally was growing, albeit for different reasons. Billy, ever the businessman, had just had a difficult encounter with Victor Newman. As one of the most influential figures in Genoa City, Victor's power was undeniable, and his words carried weight. In their latest meeting, Victor had made a chilling proposition: he would call off the war between their families if Billy provided him with vital information about the mysterious Dumas situation. Billy, always on the lookout for an opportunity, was momentarily tempted by Victor's offer. Victor had a way of making people feel like they could get ahead by giving him what he wanted, and Billy was no exception. His mind raced with the possibilities. What could this information about Dumas lead to? Would this be a game-changer for him and his business? Could this be his chance to seize power, to wrest control away from the chaos and uncertainty that surrounded him? Sally, however, was not so easily swayed. She had witnessed firsthand the danger of getting too entangled with Victor. She had seen how easily people could be manipulated by him, and she wasn't about to let Billy make the same mistake. She warned him to stay away from Victor's offer, to resist the temptation to get involved with the Newman family's dirty dealings. Sally had been through enough to know that Victor's deals rarely came without strings attached. Billy, though tempted, agreed to listen to Sally and promised her that he would steer clear of the Newmans for now. He vowed to focus solely on Abbott Communications and the work that needed to be done to restore the company's reputation. Their conversation ended with a kiss, a fleeting moment of happiness amidst the mounting tension. But, as always, there was a shadow lurking in the background. What they didn't know was that Phyllis, ever the observant one, had overheard their conversation. She stood a few feet away, hidden from view, her eyes narrowing as she listened to Billy's words. The pieces were starting to fall into place for Phyllis, and the weight of what she had heard was not lost on her. She was not only dealing with her frustrations about Abbott Communications, but now she had new information about her son's involvement with the Newmans, information that could change everything. Phyllis's reaction: what does she do next? Phyllis had always been someone who prided herself on being in control, on knowing everything that was going on around her. Now, with the knowledge of Billy's temptation to strike a deal with Victor, she knew that things were about to get even more complicated. She had never been one to shy away from confrontation, and this time would be no different. Her mind raced as she processed what she had just overheard. She understood the implications of Victor's offer. This was more than just a business deal. It was a dangerous game, one that could have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved. She also knew how Billy worked. He was always searching for a way to secure his power, even if it meant aligning himself with people like Victor. As Phyllis stood there, lost in thought, her expression darkened. She had a choice to make. Would she use this new information to her advantage? Would she confront Billy and Sally, or would she keep this knowledge to herself, waiting for the right moment to strike? One thing was certain: Phyllis was never one to let an opportunity slip through her fingers, and this was an opportunity she would not let go to waste. A web of manipulation and power. What followed next would be a delicate web of manipulation, power plays, and emotional turmoil. Phyllis had already made it clear that she was ready to move on from Abbott Communications, but with the new knowledge she had gained, she would likely make her move at the perfect time, when it would hurt the most, but also when it could give her the leverage she needed. Billy, unaware of Phyllis's eavesdropping, continued to be caught up in the whirlwind of his choices, and Sally, ever loyal, stood by him, trying to steer him in the right direction. But with Phyllis now aware of their conversations, the dynamics of their relationships would shift once more, setting the stage for a dramatic showdown. In this world of business, betrayal, and secrets, no one is ever truly safe. As Phyllis, Billy, and Sally each move through their complicated paths, the tension between them only continues to rise, and the consequences of their actions will soon become impossible to ignore. What lies ahead for these characters is a turbulent road full of unexpected twists and turns, as they face the fallout of their decisions and the consequences of their allegiances. In the park, the soft breeze of the day failed to ease the tension that simmered between Clare and Kyle. With a thoughtful look in her eyes, Clare turned to him, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and determination. She had been contemplating a plan, a bold, ambitious one, that she believed could change everything for her and Kyle. "What if we could win Victor over with love and persistence?" she suggested, her tone light yet serious. "Maybe some picnics with Harrison, showing him how much we care, could soften him up." The idea seemed almost too simple, yet to Clare, it represented a path forward, one where her future with Kyle and the approval she so desperately desired from her grandfather could coexist. Kyle, however, wasn't convinced. He crossed his arms, skepticism etched across his face as he looked at Clare. "You're asking us to win over a man who threatened us and forbade us from selling the apartment. You know how much he detests our relationship," he said, his voice tinged with disbelief. To him, Victor's approval felt out of reach, like an insurmountable obstacle they were foolishly trying to conquer. His memories of Victor's threats and cold-hearted disapproval weighed heavily on his mind, and no amount of picnics or effort could erase the reality of their strained relationship. Clare's eyes softened, but her resolve was unwavering. She took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts before explaining. "It's not just about the apartment, or even the business. Victor's approval has always been something I've longed for, and it's not just about the approval. It's about acceptance, about feeling like I belong." She paused for a moment, her gaze distant as she recalled her childhood. "I grew up without a family, without a sense of belonging. For so long, I idolized Victor. He's the patriarch of the Newman family, the one person I've always looked up to. I've spent my life trying to prove myself worthy of him, worthy of being a part of this family. I need him to see me." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her past and the longing that had shaped much of her life. Clare's need for Victor's approval was more than just a simple desire, it was a deep-seated need that had been ingrained in her since childhood. She had watched from the sidelines as the Newman family thrived, wishing desperately to be included, to be seen as more than an outsider. And Victor, the pillar of that family, had always been the one to determine whether she was truly one of them. Kyle, his arms still crossed, looked at Clare with a mixture of understanding and concern. He could see the pain in her eyes, the years of yearning that had shaped her desire for Victor's approval. But despite this understanding, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this quest for approval was compromising their happiness. "I get that," Kyle said softly, his voice laced with empathy. "I understand why Victor's approval means so much to you. But why does it feel like we have to base everything on his terms? Why do we have to revolve our lives around someone's grudges, someone who clearly doesn't care about us?" Clare's heart tightened as Kyle's words sank in. She understood his frustration, she had felt it too, especially when Victor's coldness and judgment seemed so unrelenting. But to Clare, it was more than just about her and Kyle's relationship. It was about her identity, about who she was in the world, and how she fit into the family she had always dreamed of being part of. Kyle's question lingered in the air, and for a moment, Claire didn't know how to answer. How could she explain that the weight of Victor's disapproval felt like a constant shadow hanging over her life? She had spent so many years trying to prove herself, trying to earn a place in his eyes. Was it so wrong to want that approval, to yearn for something that might give her a sense of purpose in a family she had always admired from afar? As Claire opened her mouth to respond, she hesitated. I think we need to slow down, let Victor see that we're not rushing things, that we're serious. I want him to feel heard, to know that we're not just pushing him away. Maybe that's what will change things. Kyle's gaze softened as he listened to her. The woman he loved was in pain, torn between the man who had shaped her family and the life she wanted to build with him. He could see how much it meant to her, but a part of him still wondered if this quest for Victor's approval was becoming a trap, one that threatened to suffocate their relationship. Are we still just the two of us in this? Kyle asked, his voice more tentative now. Or has Victor become the third person in our relationship? Claire's heart ached at the question. She knew exactly what Kyle meant. All too often, it felt like Victor's presence loomed over them, casting a shadow that neither of them could escape. His opinions, his expectations, they had become so ingrained in their lives that it seemed impossible to build something on their own terms. I know it's complicated, Claire said quietly. I don't want him to control our relationship, but I need him to understand that I'm not going anywhere. I just need him to see me for who I am. Not just as his granddaughter, but as someone who's building a life with you. Kyle studied her for a moment, his gaze searching. He loved her deeply, but he also knew that this was a battle she needed to fight on her own terms. He didn't want to lose her to a man who was so hell-bent on keeping them apart, but he also understood the pull of family. He had seen it too many times in his own life with the Abbotts. All right, Kyle finally said, a resigned smile tugging at his lips. We'll try it your way. But promise me something, don't let him take over everything we have. I won't stand by if it means losing you to someone who doesn't care about us. Claire's heart swelled with gratitude. She knew that Kyle's words came from a place of love and protection. She didn't want to lose him either, not for anything. I promise, she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. But as she spoke those words, there was something in her heart that lingered, a spark of another idea. Something more than just picnics and patience. She had another plan, another way to prove to Victor that she was serious about her future, about her life with Kyle. It was a risky move, but it was one she was ready to make. She wasn't about to let anything, least of all Victor's disapproval, destroy the future she was fighting for. I have one more idea, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but her eyes were alight with determination. Kyle raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. What's that? Claire didn't answer right away. She had learned long ago that the best plans often had to be kept in the shadows until the right moment. And this time, she would let her actions speak louder than her words. Only time would tell if her idea would be the breakthrough they needed, or if it would push them further into conflict with the very man she sought approval from. But she was ready to take that risk. As they stood there, side by side, Claire and Kyle knew their relationship was about to face another test. But this time, they would face it together, ready to challenge the forces that sought to keep them apart, one step at a time. And perhaps, just perhaps, it would lead them to the future they had always dreamed of.